Well, hey everybody, it's Casey Jaycox with the Quarterback Dadcast. Welcome to season 5, the tail end of season 5. And for those of you that are watching us on video on YouTube, thank you. That is a new wrinkle to the podcast this year. And but those of you maybe rolling down the car on the treadmill, you are in for a treat. It's funny how life, everybody, when you're curious and you believe in a little serendipity, a lot of good things can happen. And our next guest, his name's JR Butler, and we have multiple things in common. One specifically, a former guest on the show who he grew up with, our boy Jameis, and then also a big mentor in my life. And if I think this gentleman knows he's a big mentor in my life, but we're going to make sure he knows it because the mighty John Kaplan, I met him at the end of my corporate career, and there's so many things he taught me. The biggest thing I think is around conscious competence and really understanding why and what and how people do things. But with all that said, our next guest is the founder and CEO of Shift Group, doing amazing things for athletes, for veterans. We're going to learn all about that. He's a hockey stud at Holy Cross that upset the Golden Gophers back in 2006, but that's not why we're having him on. We're having JR on because JR is the dad. And we're going to learn how he's working hard to become that ultimate quarterback or leader of his household. So without further ado, Mr. Butler, welcome to the Quarterback Dadcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Casey. And I will say stud is probably a stretch on the hockey side. I'm more of a locker room guy, but I appreciate that.
That's what your agent told me to say. Well, I'm a diehard Kraken fan.
Oh, nice.
Never skated. I suck at skating. My son sucks at skating. We both look like Bambi on the ice, but I watch every single Kraken game. I still don't quite understand what pinch means. I'm still trying to understand what the hell a forecheck is, but I love my Seattle Kraken every game.
So Casey, I went to the same high school that your boy Joey Dacord went to, which is a very, very well-known hockey school up here in Massachusetts. And I know Joey personally too.
Wow.
Great human being and phenomenal goalie. And I love what they're doing in Seattle. I didn't realize that connection. That's awesome.
We just signed Joey to a 5-year deal.
I saw that.
He played great last night. He gave up 3 in the first, but locked down. If you see the highlights, man, he had some sick saves in the second period.
Yep.
So what a small world. Oh, Joey D. Actually, random question before I ask you another question. Do you know the name John Forsland?
Of course, yeah.
So Johnny Forsland. So you and John Forsland have this in common. You're both Quarterback Dadcast guests.
Oh, very cool. That's amazing.
I was starstruck when I was talking to him. I'm like, this is unbelievable. And I'll email you the episode because being a Boston guy and the story he's told on how he got into announcing is unbelievable.
I love that.
Cool. So I'll make sure I make a note to do that. But all right, well, let's get started. We always start out each episode with gratitude. So tell me, what are you most grateful for as a dad today?
I am grateful to be alive today, which I'm sure we'll get into, but I have a new appreciation every morning when I wake up and my eyes open and I can breathe.
Let's tease the audience. Tell me why you said that.
Because I died 22 times in 11 days about 4 weeks ago.
Wow. So if that's not reason to keep listening, everybody, hold on. We're going to get there. But I can't wait to hear that story because I think it's going to impact the mindset of dads and hopefully anybody else listening. But it's funny maybe serendipitous or ironic. When I wake up in 2020 during like the COVID shenanigans, I started just a gratitude practice. And so every day it's the same thing. I'm not like I don't go to church, nothing against people who go to church. I'm just very spiritual. I look at a Bible scripture every morning. Sometimes I have no idea what it means. Sometimes it hits me, but I always, in my gratitude work, I always say, God, thanks for waking me up today. Thank you for my health. Thank you for giving me a chance to be a dad today. Thank you for a chance to let me be more curious and meet somebody. And it just gets my mind going the right way to start the day. So I think sometimes people say what you just said and just lip service, but we're going to make people believe it today.
Totally. 100%.
So, cool. Well, let's dive into the Butler huddle. I know you're a hockey guy, but you're going to play football today. So tell me who's on the squad and maybe tell me a little bit how you and your wife met.
Sure. So it's me, my wife, whose name is Caroline, my son, who's John Alvin, but he goes by Jack. So he's the fifth John Butler in a long Irish lineage.
Wow.
But he is not. He's Irish, but he is not Catholic. My wife is Jewish, so he's Jewish because that's how the Jewish religion goes through the mother's line. And we have two dogs. Nala, who's a Greyhound Whippet mix, who's 13 years old. My wife's had her since she was 20, and we bought our second dog, who's a 14-pound Cavapoo, with the name Biggie, because I am a 90s rap absolute obsession with 90s rap.
Let's
So
go.
I wanted a bulldog, Casey, and my wife was like, absolutely not. So we agreed. She agreed to do a Cavapoo, but I'm like, at least let me pick the name. And I always had in my brain a bulldog named Biggie, so we have a Cavapoo named Biggie.
So good. I wish I could like cue the music. We're a low budget podcast over here. Where I'd cue, if I had some tech team, I'd be cueing Biggie. Can't you see? How did you and your wife meet?
We met, I guess, like 6 years ago now. At this point, in Boston, we were both fresh out of a relationship, so we did what millennials do. We got on the apps. We met on the apps. I tried. So I tried to take her to dinner. You'll love this, Casey. I tried to take her to dinner, and she said, "Absolutely not. Let's start with coffee. I need to make sure you look like you do in your pictures." So we met for coffee in South Boston at Broadway Pastry, and then 4 years later, I proposed to her at the same exact table that we sat at for that first cup of coffee.
That's awesome. That's so cool. Not that my son's going down that path, but my son, you just made me think of a story. I have a freshman in college, and that was freaking brutal. I mean, brutal that I'm happy for him, but brutal for me. That first week was awful.
I bet.
Like missing my dude, my sports guy, my Kraken guy, my Mariner guy, my golf buddy. And but then the last night before he left, him and his girlfriend, shout out Charlie, they took a picture of the same table they met at. And every time I saw it, like for that first week and a half, it just like tearjerker, like I was watching a good episode of Punky Brewster.
Oh my God, dude. I haven't heard a Punky Brewster reference in forever, man.
Yeah.
Good job.
Welcome to Randomville. I'm an ex quarterback with a screw loose. So we're gonna have some fun today. Okay. And then Jack, tell me a little bit more about Jack. What's he like to do?
He loves buttons. So he's 17 months old. He is in his buttons phase. So I call him Jackie Buttons. I got him a hat that says buttons across it. Everything is a button. He points at everything. He says buttons. We got him all the toys that like have the buttons that light things up. So he loves pressing buttons. He's also in his hitting phase. He whacks the dogs, right? Like, there's no gentle. He doesn't have the gentle muscle yet. And dude, he lights up when I get home from work. It's the best thing I've ever seen or felt in my entire life.
I'm sure you have had many people in your life say, enjoy it. It goes fast. It goes fast, man. I remember Ryder when he was when Jack's age. He's now 18-year-old freshman in college. My daughter Riley is a junior, and I still feel like the goofy 17-year-old with a bad sense of humor. And that's stuck with me, which I'm glad, but I cannot believe how fast it goes. So I know you know this, but just enjoy every moment, man. So
I'm feeling that, man. It's already going by really, really fast.
Okay. Well, I always like asking my guests to turn back time and take me back to what was life like growing up for JR and share some of the stories or values that your parents really instilled in you.
So I am the oldest of three boys. My father is a Hall of Fame high school hockey coach in Massachusetts.
Wow.
So we all kind of grew up in a high school hockey locker room, which if you know me, that should explain a lot about my sense of humor and my tendency to swear too much. My mother is also obviously a legend to have three, future college hockey playing boys. And she came from nothing. My dad was one of five. He lost his dad at 16, which I think has a lot to do with the way my dad is to us and the relationship that we have. And I also will say, I think a big impact on like my experience growing up is my parents were young when they had me. They met at 21, married at 22, and then I came basically 9 months later, and I'm the oldest. But I think two things that are super important about the way I was raised is I would call it accountability and work ethic were kind of ingrained in us from the jump. The story I'll use, this is like my favorite story about my dad is I grew up and I tried out for this select team. Actually, Jameis was on the select team and I wasn't. Jameis was a much better hockey player than me growing up. And we had tryouts and I didn't make the team. And I can't, and when you're 12 years old, it's like the most devastating thing in the entire world. Came home, was in tears, very upset. And my mom was she's a true mom, like hugging me. Hey, the coach doesn't know what they're doing, blah, 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 trying to make me feel better. And then my dad came home. He's like, what's wrong, dude? And I told him I didn't make the Flames, blah, blah, blah. I was being a little bit bitching about it. And my dad said to me, he said, how many pucks did you shoot this summer? How many times did you do sprints? How many push-ups? How many sit-ups? How many squats? How many wrist rolls? And of course I was 12. I didn't, he told me I should do that stuff. I didn't do that stuff. And he's like, JR, like, you didn't make the team because you didn't deserve to make the team. Like nobody's out to get you, dude. Like if anything, you have a leg up because of our background in hockey. He's like, if you're not going to do the work, nobody's going to give you anything. So that was a massive, that is probably the best analogy or anecdote, Casey, for how I was raised, I think.
Did your other brothers go through anything like that too?
My youngest brother definitely did. Our middle brother is like a generational hockey talent. And I don't say that lightly. He played in the NHL for 5 years. He represented the United States in the 2018 Olympics. So he was quite literally one of the best hockey players in the country. He did not get cut from teams. Actually, when he got older, he went through it like in the NHL, like it's a business, and he got bought out from his contract. But in terms of like growing up, no. But my other brother definitely did, and I think all three of us have that in our DNA. That idea of accountability, that no victim mindset, that nobody cares, work harder kind of thought process. That came from both my parents for sure.
Now, did your dad just coach hockey, or was that his main job, like teacher, coach, or did he do something else?
He was he sold used auto parts, which I don't even think is a thing anymore. But he worked at a junkyard, and he used to, basically the way that business used to work. I don't think it exists anymore. But you'd total like a Honda Civic, you'd sell it to a junkyard for like $100 because it was totaled. And then you could sell the pieces and parts of it. Like you could sell the transmission if it was good for $400. So high margin business. But that's what he did until like the early 2000s. And then he switched over to the mortgage business because my mom, who didn't graduate from high school but worked her ass off, was killing it in real estate. And my dad saw an opportunity with the no doc loan era. And he rode the mortgage train. He's still on it. And he actually works for my youngest brother now. So my youngest brother is my dad's boss, which I think is unbelievable.
Has he put him on? Has he put him on a PIP yet?
I would love if that would happen. That would be amazing.
Well, actually one thing I want to say. Do you remember the name Nathan Gerbe?
Of course, yeah, BC baby.
Nathan Gerbe was a former Quarterback Dadcast guest as well.
Oh wow, he's awesome. He's really, really he's one of the guys that gets it for sure. His
story, I asked him a story on the podcast of like, what was like, how did you know you're going to make the NHL? Or how did you know what were things your dad did? He says, well, what my dad did back in the day, sorry, Gerbs, I'm going to air you out here, but it's a great story. He goes, I don't think you can get away with doing this anymore. I'm like, well, like what happened? He goes, well, I learned to my hockey games, I started wearing like business shoes. I'm like, why? He goes, because if I played shitty after a game, he said, get out, you're running 5 miles home. And he would literally just drive slow and while he ran home. And so he's like, well, I'll fix that. I'm just going to wear business shoes so I can't run, Dad.
That is awesome.
I think this is true. Shortest guy in NHL history.
Yep.
And just an absolute beast. And he's actually the cousin of one of my very first clients in my entrepreneurial journey.
Wow.
Shout out to Leslie Vickery. Yep. And
Very
so
cool.
She introduced me to Nathan, but well, cool. So accountability, work ethic, obviously those are stories. I think the story that your dad told is uncommon. I mean, the story, what your dad did was uncommon. It's easy as parents in the day and age to protect, to be I think there's the new phrase, the snowplow parent. You want to get ahead and make life easy. And I'm sure you've had moments of adversity in your life besides that one that you can reflect and rely on it. And dads, we have to remember that what shaped us, or what has continued to shape us, is the adversity we go through. Not the wins, the easiness. It sucks going through the hard stuff. But if you can slow down to choose the right mindset, to feel like, okay, this didn't happen to me, it happened for me, and let's find out why. So how often do you find yourself reflecting back on that moment, even in your work now?
Every single day. Every single day. By the way, I love it didn't happen to me, it happened for me. I'm stealing that. I'll give you credit twice and then it's mine. That's how it works. Literally, dude, every day, right? Like we talk a lot in our business about this idea of resiliency. And I personally think resiliency is a product of losing and seeing losing as an opportunity. So when we talk about resiliency, we talk about like, you're going to fail. Like that's not an if, it's a when, and it's how often. And guess what? Even if you're the best in the world at whatever you do, it's still going to be a lot. The way that you are resilient through adversity and losses is by seeing them as opportunities and learning from them. And, I'm an entrepreneur and I spent 17 years as a salesperson and a sales leader. I have lost way more than I've won. And every time I lose or think about that conversation with my dad in my living room, and what he was teaching me is like, look in the mirror. What could you have done differently, JR? Right. That's what I do now. Every time I lose. Right. And I what is it? It's 1 p.m. I've lost twice already today and I learned from it. So it's okay. You know what I mean?
What JR is talking about is keep that ego checked.
Yes.
I'm a big Ryan Holiday fan. I love his book, Ego's the Enemy. It's so easy. And I think I've seen it. I'm sure you saw it in your sales career. And even as a sales leader, you see these one-hit wonders that have a good year. And all of a sudden they think, man, I'm elite. I'm the best. And all of a sudden they forget the habits that got them there in the first place. And so I love that we share a similar mindset. Growing up, but besides accountability and work ethic, when did you start really appreciating playing for your dad? Versus, because I'm sure he was at times hard on you, maybe hard on you than others. Maybe he wasn't. I'm not sure what type of coach he was, but when did you really start appreciating him?
So when I was, you'll like this joke. So when I was, I think I was 27 is when my dad got inducted into the Massachusetts Hockey Hall of Fame. And he asked me to do his induction speech, which was really, really cool.
Wow.
And what I said at the beginning was like, when I was 17 years old, I didn't think my dad knew anything about life and he was completely clueless. And I said, now that I'm 27, I'm just really proud of how much he's learned in the last 10 years. So it honestly, and the point is like, dude, he knew what he was talking about back then. I was just an idiot, right? Like I didn't know shit. And I think that's when I appreciated it. I think even as in my early 20s, I still was like, this guy's an asshole and doesn't know what he's talking about, right? In terms of hockey. But I think I had to get out of the game. I had to get into the real world. And I had to understand that all these things he was talking about, all this stuff that he was teaching us wasn't really about hockey. It was about life. Right. And I think until you're in like real life and you have bills and, a mortgage and a job and a boss and all these, that's when you're like, oh my God, now I get it. Now I know why he was such a prick. Like he was trying to teach me how to be an adult and be a valuable member of society. So that's how long it took me, man.
Tell me, where do you think your dad learned that mindset?
My dad was probably self-taught, I think, a little bit because he lost his dad at such a critical age, man. At 16 years old. So I think he's like, he's a graduate of the school of the hard knocks, and I just think like a little bit hardened by that experience. And I lived a pretty soft life, but he made sure I was hardened because of how he was raised and what his childhood and teenage years and early 20s were like. So that's probably where it came from, is like forged in that life situation, if that resonates.
Yeah. Well, we share that in common as well with our dads. My dad lost his dad when he was 6. My
Wow.
dad passed away in December 29th, 2021. We're in season 5. And season 3, I dedicated every episode to him. The start of the episode, which was because he passed away during COVID, which was like you couldn't really, and he lived in an assisted living facility, so you couldn't really do funerals, and he lost touch with so many people. So I was like, I got to figure out a way to like just honor his life. Because JR, my dad was the dude that, I mean, I told a story last week or a couple weeks ago. I had, do you know the name Brock Heward?
Yeah.
So Brock Heward, former NFL quarterback. He's from my area, does work on Fox Sports now. And I told a story to Brock about my dad when I was a redshirt freshman playing football in college. He traveled to like a playoff game where I was just doing signals. I mean, I didn't do anything. But I'm like, Dad, what do you come to the game for? He's like, well, I want to watch you warm up. And he literally was like, damn, man, Case, you played awesome. I'm like, Dad, I didn't. I got in for like 3 snaps. He's like, yeah, but you were like at 80% completions in warmups. And he was dead serious. And I was like, shit, like those are the memories I remember about him, and just the commitment. And but losing a dad, I always wanted to know like what my grandpa was like, but never got to meet him. So I'm always curious, like what shapes people.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, like another less related, but my mom's dad was around and he actually lived with us. You just told a story that reminded he was a veteran Army guy, grew up Depression era kid. Right. And there was a time, me and my brother, one summer, we were on the same hockey team, and we grew up in Marlboro, which has the biggest rink in the world. There's 10 ice surfaces. It's very confusing when you walk in, which games are on which are in which rink. So we came out, my grandfather was giving us a ride home, and I was looking up, trying to find him. I couldn't find him the whole game. So we get out to the car, it's his big Cadillac, and we get in the back, and I'm like, Grandpa, what do you think of the game? He's like, man, you guys kicked their ass. And we lost, by the way. And I was like, how do you think we played? He's like, you both played amazing, like really good job. I'm so proud of you, blah, blah, blah. So come to find out, he sat for an hour and watched a completely different team in a completely different rank than we were in, but he only had positive shit to say to us, which is like, by the way, like that's kind of the role of the grandpa, right? Like, just tell us
100%.
So
He's like, JR, when did you start wearing 26? That's not my number.
That's what me and my brothers always laugh about that. Like, now that my dad is a grandfather, like we remind him like, hey, you can't be a dick to our kids like you were to us. You have to actually be nice to them.
I tell you, you made me also think of a story. There's a gentleman by the name of Bruce Brown that I came across in this entrepreneurial journey, and I've shared this story with many dads. This dude has impacted me greatly in my life. He lives north of Seattle in this small island called Camino Island, and Bruce Brown's mentors are people that you might have heard of, guys like Dick Vermeil, John Wooden.
Yeah, of course.
A few decent names, right? So in his journey, one of the things he part of like his research and the work he did, he interviewed a bunch of high school, college athletes. He said, what was the number one greatest memory growing up? He said, doing this, doing that, doing this. He said, okay, what's your worst memory? He said, they said the car ride home. And so it was like, what do you mean the car? He's like, that's where I got just torched. I got coached, and I wasn't ready to get coached. I wasn't ready to get ridiculed. All I wanted to hear. And they said, well, who would you rather ride home with? He goes, grandma and grandpa. I go, why? Because all they would say is, man, I love watching you play. And so that what the article talks about is like, if your kid cares, they'll come to you. If your kid really understands and wants to compete, they'll come to you. And I was like, at first I was like, come on, that's my job to be in their shit and kind of ride them a little bit. So at 7 years old and Ryder was 7, I tried it. And I mean, he had this like routine plate short, kind of dunked it. I'm like, God dang it, dude, come on. And he didn't mean to do it. But after the game, I was like, hey man, how'd the game go? Oh, I was frustrating. I said, well, did you compete? He said, yeah. I said, dude, I love watching it. It was so fun. I loved watching you compete today. It was so fun. And he didn't say anything. And then all of a sudden, a day later, he came back to me. He goes, Dad, you said you were proud of me. Like, but what about that error I made it short? I was like, we all make errors, bro. I said, Dad F's up all the time. I leave shitty voicemails at times. I don't win every deal. My last throw in college was an interception. Most quarterbacks' last throw is a pick. So, hey, move, learn, let's go. We're good. And so I always like sharing that story for dads, specifically maybe younger dads with younger kids, to just remind ourselves of that, because I think hopefully you as a hockey player in college, you probably won't make that mistake of wanting it for them because you already excelled at a high level. But I find sometimes parents who don't quite make it, they tend to like really want their kid to do what they didn't do.
Totally.
And it's hard, man. Okay. So you have a passion for, actually, I don't want to go there. I want to go back to the post you wrote, which brought us back together. So I think you and I connected a few years ago. And then when you shared the story of your health challenge recently, it inspired me to reach back out and saying, hey dude, we got people in common. I think then you saw I had Jameis on and said like, okay, maybe this is meant to be. So bring us back to that day and share what you feel comfortable sharing, but talk about the impact of what you went through has had on you as a dad.
So the Tuesday after Labor Day, I was walking to the train and it was like 7:30 in the morning. I got lightheaded. I got dizzy. I got really warm. And so I sat down and I blacked out for what I thought was like 5 or 6 seconds. Came to, was like, fine. I'm like, I got a lot of stuff going on right now, building a business. We've grown the company from 6 to 22 people in 4 months. Like there's a lot, right? Young kid, my wife, all this stuff. So I'm like, I just had maybe it was a panic attack. I'm really stressed. And, growing up, God bless my dad. He's given me a lot of advice, but one thing that he wasn't good about was healthcare. He used to tell us when we were little, like, hey, if you don't go to the doctor, nothing's wrong with you, right? So I ignored it, Casey. I ignored it completely, went on, had a full work day. Next day, I went to the gym in the morning, was walking from the gym to my office. Same thing happened. Thursday, I was coming home from the office. So this is all different times. So there's no like thing that's making this happen. I was walking, it was like 7:30 at night. I was walking home and it happened again. And by the way, I didn't tell anybody about it. Like I was kind of just like battling through it. Like I was kind of raised to do, like I'll be fine. Then on Friday, what happened, it happened in the afternoon. I was on a phone call. I had an earphone in, I was talking to somebody and I said, hey, hold on. I'm feeling dizzy. And I sat down, and when I came to, 2 things happened. And I didn't talk about one of these things in the post because I don't think it was LinkedIn appropriate, but I want to share it with the audience. One, I peed myself. That was very scary. That hadn't happened to me since I stopped drinking 12 years ago. That was at one point in my life a pretty common occurrence, but that was really scary. And the second thing that was really scary was the guy told me, dude, I was like, what were we talking about? And I tried to pick the conversation up and he's like, dude, I was just like yelling your name for like 90 seconds, JR. So I didn't, and apparently every time this was happening, I was blacking out for like 90 seconds. So I went back to the office, sent a few emails. I did, and then I called my wife and I told her, "Hey, this is what's been happening with me. Like, this is what just happened. Like, what should I do?" And my wife, God bless her, was like, "You get an Uber and meet me at the ER right now. Like, this is not like we're not messing with this." I went
Mm,
into the ER. It took them like for like 24 hours. They just like watched me. They didn't have me on anything, and it happened like two more times. It
geez.
happened once when I was using the restroom, and I woke up to all these nurses around me. So then they moved me to general medicine. They put what's called an EEG, which is a brain activity machine, and an EKG, which is a heart activity machine. Um, and it happened like four times in 24 hours. And once I had the EKG on, Casey, every time it happened, I woke up to like 11 nurses in my room and one of them standing over me with paddles, about to revive me. And by the way, like when I woke up, I was fine. I was a little sweaty, but other than that, like mentally there, physically, like not in pain or anything. And I'm like, whoa, 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 like, what are you guys doing? They're like, and that's when the doctor kind of came in and was like, hey, man, like you're going into cardiac arrest every time this happens. You're literally dying and your heart is stopping for 20 to 30 seconds. And there's like a pretty big chance that it's not going to start again if this keeps happening. Um, and like, I was very, they were like, we don't know what's going on. Like, we need to continue to watch you for a few days, but you're probably going to need a pacemaker. And I was like, I'm 39 years old. I'm 5 pounds heavier than I was when I played college hockey. I work out 5 days a week. I eat very healthy. I don't need a pacemaker. And I kind of fought it, and then it kept happening. Finally, they kind of had a doctor come in that approached me with what I needed, which was confidence and conviction. Because a lot of the doctors, and this is after having conversations with my friends that are in the medical field, we've kind of gone the wrong way with this. A lot of the doctors were like, "We can wait and see, or you can get a pacemaker, and we think that will help." And I was like, "We'll wait and see." Like that's a lifetime decision. This guy came in and like really said, "Hey, dude, like this is dangerous. You need to get a pacemaker." Is it 100% guarantee it's going to fix it? No, but this is like to the best of our knowledge, this is the right thing to do. Finally, I was like, all right, let's do it. So I went into surgery. I got a pacemaker, which is scary, dude. As a 39-year-old, you know, the average age of someone who gets a pacemaker is in their late 60s, early 70s, even in the 80s. But they put it in. I was in the hospital. I ended up being in the hospital for like 13 days. And I haven't fainted since it happened. And come to find out, my pacemaker is active 53% of the time. So I have a heart dysfunction. Um, Again, I have a lot of more appointments. This is very new, like 4 weeks ago. So I have a lot more stuff to do to figure out why or how. Um, but I told you about my grandfather, my dad's dad. He died of a heart attack at 38. His dad died of a heart attack at 36. So very likely whatever I have is genetic and hereditary, and 100% confirmed. The only reason I didn't die from it is because I'm healthy, and because I'm sober. Because my grandfather and great grandfather were alcoholics, smokers, and obese. So that's the only reason I came back from it. Um, but yeah, it was a very very scary experience.
Wow. Well, I'm grateful you're here with me today.
Me too.
I'm grateful you have the vulnerability to share the story, because my hope is this will impact somebody who is maybe not listening to their body.
Me too.
And I tell you the one thing. So I got you by a few years. I'm 48, almost 49. And the one thing that my wife has taught me, and we've been married 25 years, met in seventh grade, and you got to be your own advocate. No offense to any of the doctors out there. I know you guys are doing the best you can, and our system sometimes doesn't allow doctors to really dig in deep, I think. And so, if you feel something, say something. If you feel something's not right, and it worst case scenario, you go pay a $20 copay, and you go get it figured
Yeah.
out. But I think as dads, we owe it to our kids to make that phone call and go get, and because you don't get a second. I mean, you're lucky, you got 4 chances.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
wow. Well, did they know? Is it like in what's it called? There's a word for a heart issue when it kind of skips a beat. I can't remember the name.
Yeah, that's like called VT. It's not VT. It's whatever. It's called sinus node dysfunction leading to sinus node arrest. And there's a term called bradycardia is what it is. I have an appointment with a cardiac geneticist to figure out if it's genetic, and then my brothers and my son and my nephews and nieces can all go get tested for it if it comes back positive. Because I don't, if I'm being honest with you, Casey, I don't know how it skipped my dad. I love my dad. He is over 300 pounds, 64-year-old. Not a picture of health, still, not an alcoholic by any means, but he loves to have a good time, smokes at least 1 cigar a day. So I'm very lucky that it skipped him, because he probably would have had the same fate as my grandfather and great grandfather based off his health. It's why I'm healthy, because I don't want to be like that when I'm that age. But you made a great point, and I want to emphasize it to everybody listening. You have to advocate for yourself, right? You are another patient. They don't care about your family or any of this other stuff. Like, they're going to read off a piece of paper and tell you what they think, but they're not going to push you. You have to really pay attention. You have to be really curious, to the point you said before we started recording. And you have to push for what's the right thing based off like something that makes sense to you. Like that's, I think what's really important is like the doctor is smarter than you in terms of healthcare and knows more than you, but it's got to make sense to you. And that's one thing that I learned from my wife. She was a massive, I probably wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for her. 100%.
Caroline, great work. Way to be there. To pick up your dude. What if you had to say one like core lesson that when Jack's old enough to understand what you just went through? Tell me what comes to mind and what you might share with him.
So when you say core lesson, you mean from the experience, or like in terms of like how my perspective has changed because of what I went through?
Whatever your heart's telling you to say. I
think my biggest takeaway from this experience, Casey, and like kind of, you think you're invincible, you think you can live forever, right? So I have a daily reminder of this scar and this computer in my chest that neither of those things are true, and time is the only resource you can't create more of. The biggest lesson, and something I'm absolutely gonna, especially nowadays with Jack, emphasize, and any other kids we have, is to be present. Be present. Be where your feet are. And I know I mentioned this, and when you reached out to me, because I don't advocate. I think work-life balance is a made-up thing. I don't think that's people came up with that to convince people to take shitty jobs. Like it's work-life integration. I'm building a business, and it's really important to me, and I really think I can have an impact, and it's part of my DNA. And I'm not advocating to say like, don't do that and spend all your time with your friends and family, because life is too short. What I am advocating for is when you're at work, be at work, be 100% in, give it your all, because you don't know when you're not going to be there. But when you go home, leave it at work. Put your phone in the other fucking room, dude. Sorry to swear, but this is how important. Yeah. This is how important this is. Be where your feet are. Be with your kid. Be with your wife. Be with your friends when you're with your friends. Like, obviously, be available so your family can reach out to you. But in terms of work, you're not curing cancer, right? Like, you're not saving lives like my doctor did. There's no reason for you to respond to that text right now. There's no reason for you to be thinking, and this is hard as an entrepreneur, and I know you can relate to this. Work is always on my brain, and I've learned after what I went through to turn it off, and it's going to still be there when Jack goes to bed and Caroline goes to bed. So if I need to do something, I can do it after that, but be where your feet are all the time, no matter what that means.
It's cool, dude. I want to piggyback, and I don't mean to go like whenever I tell like stories of like previous experience or whatever it is, even like football, I always give love to Uncle Rico. So I don't mean this to make this like an Uncle Rico Napoleon Dynamite moment, but when I was 30, 31, 32, I worked in the staffing and consulting industry for 20 something years. And I would say right guy, right time, right place. But I was lucky enough. I was our number one rep for 10 straight years. A lot of pressure doing that each and every year. Not only the pressure put on myself, but the pressure from others to like keep doing what I'm doing.
Yep.
And I remember when Ryder was 18 months, 24 months old. I remember leaving, getting the office at 7 before he would wake up or barely get to see him when he wakes. I would know I didn't get to see him before he left. And then when I get home like 6:45, and he'd go to bed at 7:15. I'm like, this is fucking awful. Like, this is not what being a dad's about. And I remember being so like frustrated. And I finally went to my boss. Shout out to Angela Ronica. If you're listening, Ange, I said, Ange, I know that you love and company called K-Force. They love what I'm doing. Or it was actually, K-Force what I'm doing, but I'm miserable. I am like miserable. And she's like, well, what do you mean? I'm like, well, I'm doing great things for you guys. And pocketbook feels great, but like, I want to be a present dad. And she's like, we'll leave at 4. I'm like, we don't work for, no offense to the bankers. I go, I can't, what's in the bank? It's not like she's like, why can't you? I'm like, well, I don't know. She's like, do you not trust us? I go, no, I trust you guys. She's like, then leave at 4. We got these things called cell phones. You're available the whole drive home. When you get home at 5, shut it down. And so like from like 5 to 7, I was not available. And unless it was like 911 called
right.
And these things, there's amazing technology still works. It's called voicemail. Leave us a message.
Yep.
And I trained my team, I trained my clients like, hey, listen, I'm going to be unavailable unless it's like, I mean, obviously there was always but 4, but 99% of the time I was not available. And then from like 7:30 to 8, me and Carrie would spend time. And then from 8 to like 10, I'd clean up email. I'd document my CRM. I'd get my day plan for the next day. And that was like rinse, repeat, robot. Dude, and JR, when I did that, my career went from this to freaking straight rocket ship. Just from doing that and being, to your point, being present at both spots.
Yes.
Not half-assing it either way. So
either way. And you don't have to choose. It's not either or. It can be both.
Yeah. And hopefully people listen home, you got 2 examples right here and of people that are doing it. They're living it. And we're not perfect at it, I would say. I'll speak for myself, but I have a commitment to do it. And I have a commitment to like ask for accountability partners in my life, whether it's my wife, my friends, whoever it may be. I want to learn about Shift Group now before we summarize. If people want to learn, or people have no idea what Shift Group is, people have no idea what you do, talk about why you started the business and who are you serving?
Absolutely. So when I was 24 years old, I woke up one morning, actually got woken up with a kick in the ribs by my favorite guy, my dad. And he said, dude, hockey's over. You need to get a effing job. And that was quite literally the first time in my entire life that I thought about who I was and what I was going to do other than hockey. And I struggled with that loss of identity and that loss of purpose, which is what led to like a lot of my substance abuse challenges. And I tripped and fell into a career, kind of half-assed it for a few years. And then I kind of had this epiphany that like, just because I'm not a professional athlete doesn't mean I'm not a professional. And I started approaching my job the same way I approached my athletic career. And it changed my life, both personally, but also like financially, which is why you have a career. It's why it's called making a living. It's to support your living and like what you can buy and what you can't. And then I spent, 16 years a few years as a salesperson, but most of my time I was a leader, hiring teams, building teams. And it's really, really hard, dude. Like, especially early career talent, right? You can't really tell from a resume in an interview if someone is a resilient, coachable, a good teammate. Like, those aren't things that pop out in a 30-minute discussion or on a piece of paper. So what our company does is it solves those two problems for people. It solves people who find their identity and their purpose in uniform, whether that's on a field or on the ice or on the battlefield. We help veterans too when they transition. Um, we help them through we have a platform, two-sided platform. One side is training, one side is recruiting. On the training side, they do self-discovery, career discovery, career upskilling, and they learn how to tell their story and position their value. On the other side, companies can log in, find an athlete or a veteran in a geography they're looking to hire, and watch videos of that person telling their story, explaining why they want to do the career that they chose, why they're a good fit, and then whatever that career is, they actually can watch videos of key concepts and key skills for that career. So if I'm a sales leader and I want to hire someone as a BDR, I can watch them do a cold call before I interview them. Watch them present their 30, 60, 90, do an account research assignment. And we do that in tech, healthcare, financial services, and we're expanding the number of career choices and the number of companies. We work with about 350 companies now that log into that portal every day to try to find really resilient, coachable, hardworking, and accountable team first candidates. That's the business.
Love it, man. That's so cool. That is so cool, and what an impact it's going to make on so many companies. Because I mean, actually, I've been around sales, biz dev my whole life, and employees and leaders, and they're like, man, I love to find a college athlete. I love to find an athlete. Well, here's your solution, everybody. Make sure you follow JR. You follow the shift group. We'll make sure this is linked in the show notes so we can make it easier for people to learn more about you, your team, your company, and find. And if you're a veteran or you're an athlete and you're struggling, here's a solution. Here's a resource for you to go get that job you always wanted to get. Okay, now, so back to our dad conversation before we go into what I call the lightning round, which is really crazy stuff. You're really going to see a guy with the screw loose. If you were to summarize kind of everything we talked about, which started with a blank piece of paper, now it's a full page of notes. Tell me how would you summarize, a couple of like words or actionable themes that dads can take from our conversation is like, wow, I learned A, B, and C, and I can apply this in my own life to become a better leader in my home. Tell me what comes to mind.
I would say, don't have an ego when it comes to your health. Like, pay attention to your body, and enjoy every moment. Like, as a dad, as a husband, but also as like an employee and somebody who's like, that's kind of, be where your feet are all the time and be all in all the time. And the last thing right behind me for those on video, nobody cares. Work harder. Like, make sure you participate in your own success, because nobody's coming to save you in the real world.
Love it. Nobody cares. Work harder. You have two ways to embrace that. It's like, God, that's kind of intense. It's reality, everybody. It's freaking reality. And when you adopt that mindset and find the positivity in that message, watch what happens to your mindset. Watch what happens to your skills. Watch what happens to your growth and your personality, your career, your life as a dad, your friend, whatever it may be. Love it. How can people? So Shift Group. What about any other social channels you're on where I can send people?
Instagram, it's Shift Group _HQ, and that's all the social channels. Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, and the reason we got to connect, Casey, is because of LinkedIn. I'm a good follow on LinkedIn, I think. I tell it how it is on my own posts, but I'm also pretty famous for getting into the dirt in the comments when I don't agree with someone. So I think I'm a pretty good follow on LinkedIn.
You ever get 2 minutes in the box for popping off on LinkedIn? Only time.
Yeah, we got big this year, so I had to hire a COO because I was like, I'm a sales guy. I was like running the business on Google Drive, and that's not a good thing for a multi-million-dollar company. So I brought in like a an operational financial stud. And he sat down with me before he accepted the job offer. And he's like, I love what you post on LinkedIn, but you have to be less of a bully than you are. So now what I do is I'll type a response. I'll send him a screenshot. And if he says I can do it, I'll do it.
Love it. Hey, you're walking the walk. You're checking the ego, man. I love it.
Yeah. Coachability, baby.
Here we go. Okay. So now I know we're getting up on timer, so I'll make this quick. This is what I call the lightning round. I go random. I don't have any questions prepared. My job is to show you the negative hits of taking too many hits in college, not bong hits, but football hits. Your job is to answer them quickly, and I'm hopeful to get a giggle out of you.
Okay, perfect.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay, first question. You're the only Holy Cross hockey player to land a triple Lutz and nail a one-timer from the blue line and score a goal.
Is that a question?
Yeah.
Am I? No.
Okay. I didn't know. I think a triple Lutz is like an ice skating move. That's the only thing I can think
it is.
Okay.
Excellent.
Favorite hockey moment of your entire life is?
Getting to see my brother play in the NHL. That was the first thing that popped into my head. I didn't know I was going to say that, but that's it.
Who do you play for?
His first game was with the Ottawa Senators.
Wow.
Against the New York Rangers. It was incredible. Proudest moment of my life.
So cool. What's your favorite hockey movie of all time?
Slapshot.
So good. Yep. Well played.
Second Miracle.
Have you ever seen Strange Brew?
Of course, dude. Of course. Good reference, dude. Only someone from the Pac Northwest knows Strange Brew. I like that.
If you were to go on a vacation right now, you and Caroline, sorry, Jack, you're staying home, buddy. Where would you go? Just you and her.
Our spot is St. Bart's. We love it there.
Okay, good answer. If I was to come to your house for dinner tonight, what would we have?
Crustless pepperoni pizza from Lou Malnati's. It's my favorite meal ever.
That sounds really, really good. I get pizza.
Dude, the crust is a giant sausage patty. And then they put the cheese and the sauce and the toppings on top of the sausage patty. So it's like a 16-inch pizza. It's like 1,200 calories, Casey. Less than 20 grams of carbs. Wow. It's amazing, dude. Amazing.
Wow. Dude, I'll see you in 4 hours. I got a 5-hour flight. I'll be there soon. That's good. If there was to be a book written about your life, tell me the title.
Luggage. Okay. Or side title, fuck you, I'll take the Sagamore.
There we go.
There's a great story behind that.
I love it. Okay, so either of those titles is the one, but now what's happening is every time I go to pick up a copy, it's sold out. I've tried Amazon, it's sold out. I've tried bookstores, it's sold out. I'm at the airport, it's sold out. So now Netflix has heard about this book, JR, and they're going to make a movie. And you are the casting director. I need to know who's going to star you in this critically acclaimed hit new movie.
Bradley Cooper.
BC?
Yeah.
Oh boy.
He's got to wear a hat though, because my hairline is not the same as his.
Love it. And then last question. Tell me 2 words that would describe Caroline.
Amazing woman.
Amazing woman. Boom. Lightning round's over. We both giggled. We'll call it a tie, but tie always means I give the dub to my guest. Dude, this has been a freaking blast.
So fun, man. You're really good at this.
No, I appreciate that. I practice this job practices curiosity and listening, active listening. And this, people think, oh, you're a podcaster. I lose money by doing this thing, but it is a calling. I do this because I get to serve people, and selfishly, I get free therapy every time I talk to a dad. So I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank all the dads who continue to listen. If you're seeing this on YouTube, thank you. My call to action is if this episode has impacted you, you go to where you're listening to it, you hit share episode, and you send it to your buddies, or leave a comment on LinkedIn, or leave a comment on Instagram, wherever you're engaging this, because the more dads we can impact, the more ways we can get the right type of mindset impacting our kids to create better societies where we live in. So, JR, I'm grateful for our time, man. I hope our paths cross soon in person, because it'd be great to shake your hand and even maybe play some golf one day.
Absolutely. 100%. Great to meet you, Casey. Thank you for having me.
You bet.